Welcome back for a new game review. It's been a little while since I've done one of these, so let's get to it. As always, GokuSunDBZ. You can follow me at Twitter /GokuSunDBZ and everything. I will be uploading future piece by piece game playthrough of this game. This is a review for the indie developed game from several years back, The Town of Light. The first thing to know about this game is it is more or less a walking simulator game, is the first thing to know about it. So, if you don't mind walking simulator type games, plus you like supporting indie games, I recommend this. But with that said, this is a walking simulator with elements of a psychological horror. Now, there isn't, to be fair, any real jump scares. Just know, and yeah, there will be some minor spoilers in the game. But basically, it's more of a exploration slash also walking simulator. There is a lot of exploration involved because you predominantly, though you will have multiple flashbacks here and there throughout the game, total it is divided up into chapters rather than traditional parts and things. But there's more and more games going to the chapter format, especially with story-driven games, and more so with like walking sim type games, more episodic style. Much like many games now go in the episode format, pretty similar more or less with chapters. Total, you will have different of the later chapters. You will have to gather certain stuff. Now, I didn't complete in my original playthrough, which is what I recorded, was my first playthrough. Uh, I will quickly say on the graphics department, keep in mind it is a walking simulator, and like I said, it's a indie developed game, so they didn't have a humongous budget for what they had. Though I would say it turned out pretty solid overall game wise. From the specific looks and things. Now, when you look at character models like faces and stuff, does not look good. It looked like some of the facial models look like probably between PS1 and PS2 era graphically, but I'm kind of used to that and I can let it slide since it was an indie game. Plus, the game actually does really good, I think, work on the stage design, like the your surroundings graphically actually look relatively good for the game compared to the character models. The actual backgrounds and everything are very solid and well done, especially the outside moments of the game, since you are basically exploring a shut down former mental institution, is what basically you will be going through in the game. Now, there are two times in the game in different chapters that you will be reading document stuff, and you have a choice, certain choices you must make, and it will change the scenario you go with. Like, in, for instance, I think it's like chapter 6, you have different scenarios depending on how you answer certain stuff in the scenario while you're thinking and stuff. You will have, then it will change. Actually, no, it's sorry, like chapter 3 or some, and it will change the scenario to onwards. You will either end up in scenario A or scenario B, and then later on you will have once again another thing that will be given. It's like either chapter 10 or chapter 11 total. If you include the final chapter, total there's 15 chapters in the game. Now, depending on how good you are at walking sims, plus there are elements of puzzle solving, nothing really complex though. It's just you will have to do definitely some backtracking in order to get all the flashback moments in the game in order to trigger to go on to the next chapter. So that's a few things to keep in mind. I would say from certain aspects and things, at least the gameplay wise with the walking simulator stuff, it kind of reminds me a little bit of What Remains of Edith Finch, which is an amazing indie game, I might add. Probably the best first person viewpoint walking simulator indie game I've played, in my opinion. Probably the best. Um, I would put this probably somewhere in the middle of walking sims, at least indie wise. I'd put maybe at a little bit higher up than some other walking sims I've played. But overall, the story actually is what kept me playing the game. Because I actually found it interesting wanting to learn more about the character that I'm playing as. Now, I will say, probably depending on what you end up now, keep in mind, I ended with a scenario C, so I don't know how the other endings are, if the actual final ending of the game will end up any different scenario A, B, or D rather than C like I had, but the scenario I had at the end of the game was rather depressing. But it is interesting occasionally when choose not to go with a happy ending, which I'm kind of used to in some horror games like Silent Hill. You don't always get the happy ending, but you also have multiple endings. So, with that said, but for me specifically, the Town of Light, I think it's actually a really interesting experience. I got it last year. I picked up, finally got around to playing it. Um, Mainly because I'm so backlogged on indie games and games in general. But I got this on sale, and you can get this on sale a lot on like digital sales now. This review is for the PS4 version, though you can also get this on Xbox One, and I know it's also available on Steam. So since it's on Xbox One, it's on the Windows Store. It's available on Steam. Um, I don't think it's on the eShop Nintendo. I'm not 100% certain, but I don't believe it is. But this is a review for the PS4 version, since this is the version I actually played. Now, I've heard people say Steam version's a little bit better, since PC. Hard to say, but overall, I'm going to give on my grading scale, I'm going to give the Town of Light a. I'll give it a B minus. It still gets a positive rank. It's a little bit lower because of a few issues, occasionally also some frame rate issues here and there. But like I said, I wanted to let it slide a little bit more, given it was an indie game. It was done by a very small amount of people, and but the game is interesting. It takes place in like Eastern European country, but I found it quite interesting. I didn't think the voice acting work was like super bad compared to some indie games I've played, and it's way better than a lot of the PS1 era games I played over the years. But yeah, I give it a B minus. I think it deserves it because the backgrounds, like the surroundings, actually look good, and the story is actually interesting, at least for me. It depends on your cup of tea. Like I said, there are some elements of psychological horror, though the psychological horror is more done through like the writing, have to actually use your imagination, which may be a hard concept for some people nowadays. But I appreciate that. I like games that do that, make you actually have to think. I appreciate that. Like I said, there's some puzzles here and there, but nothing really complex. It's very simple novice level puzzle stuff. So it's nothing like really hard. You just have to be very thorough with your searching. Also get pages and stuff to a diary of the character, but it also gives you an insight psychologically and stuff into like the mindset of people and to see what actually went on throughout the years in different like mental institutions. It definitely gives a little bit more insight to the darker side of humanity. It's not too dark overall, but I definitely think this game is for a bit more mature audience, at least late teens, early 20s. Though I'd say this is probably a bit better game for maybe people in their mid 20s and up to really understand more the mindset from the storytelling perspective of the character and everything, unless you like games that really do make you think and stuff. Well, like I said, you can get this a lot of times on sale pretty cheap on Steam and definitely PSN. I got it on sale on PSN last year for $2.99, so yeah, you can get it pretty dirt cheap. It's more than worth a couple bucks in my opinion. So with that said, this was my review for The Town of Light. Hopefully you found it all interesting, and check out some of the gameplay in the future. That way you can see what the game actually looks like, or check out other people's game playthroughs if you want. But this is a game I highly recommend for anybody who actually doesn't mind walking sims on occasion. Just to lay back, relax, and if you want some creepy, eerie style music and stuff, but you enjoy like just the experience, the adventure, or like things for an actual interesting storytelling perspective, and given a perspective and the viewpoint of some people you normally would not understand, I do highly recommend. But with that said, everyone stay safe. Hopefully you enjoyed this video, enjoyed the music in the background from the Silent Hill games. So with that said, stay safe, and I'll see y'all next time. And stay tuned for a future indie game review I'm going to be working on in the next month or so. I'm not going to mention it until about a week before I put up it, and I'll mention which game, because right now I'm trying to decide between 3 different indie games to play through next and review. So with that said, see you soon enough.